Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şerah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul min lisani yefqahu kavli. Selamun aleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. We will inshallah continue with the first flash. This is the second station of the 22nd word. Last week we started discussing the first flash. We discussed two types of the affirmation of divine unity, not two types of divine unity, but two types of affirmation of the divine unity. And inshallah we will continue with the part which starts with the title, a reminder within the first point.
A reminder within the first point. O heedless worshipper of causes, causes are a veil, for divine dignity and grandeur require them to be thus. But that which acts and performs matters is the power of the eternally besought one. For divine unity and glory require it to be thus, and necessitate their independence. The officials of the pre-eternal monarch are not executives of the sovereignty of dominicality. They are the heralds of his sovereignty and the observers and superintendents of his dominicality. Their purpose is to make known the dignity of power and majesty of dominicality, so that power should not be seen to be associated with base and lowly matters. Not like a human king, tainted by impotence and indignance, who therefore takes officials as partners. That is to say, causes have been placed so that the dignity of power may be preserved in the superficial view of the mind. For like the two faces of a mirror, everything has an outer face that looks to this manifest world, which resembles the mirror's colored face, and may reflect various colors and states, and an inner face which looks to its maker, which resembles the mirror's shining face. In the outer face which looks to the manifest world, may be states incompatible with the dignity and perfection of the eternally besought one's power. So causes have been put to be both the source and means of those states. But in the inner face, that of reality, which looks to their creator, everything is transparent and beautiful. It is fitting that power should itself be associated with it. It is not incompatible with its dignity. Therefore, causes are purely apparent and in the inner face of things, and in reality have no true effect. A further instance of wisdom in apparent causes is this. Causes have been put so that unjust complaints and baseless objections should be directed at them, and not at the absolutely just one. For the faults arise from them, from their incapacity and lack of ability. A comparison is narrated which is in the form of a subtle example illustrating this mystery. The angel Azrael, peace be upon him, said to Almighty God, "Your servants will complain about me while I'm carrying out my duty of taking possession of the spirits of the dying. They'll be resentful towards me." So Almighty God said to them through the tongue of wisdom, "I shall leave the veils of disasters and illnesses between you and my servants, so that the complaints will be directed at them, and they will not be indignant at you." So see, illnesses are a veil. What are imagined to be the bad things at the appointed hours are attributed to them, and what are in reality the good things in the spirits of the dying being seized are attributed to Azrael and his duty. Azrael is also a veil. He is a supervisor of that duty and a veil to divine power, so that certain conditions when spirits are seized, which are apparently unkind and are inappropriate to the perfection of mercy, may be attributed to him. Yes, dignity and grandeur demand that the causes are a veil to the hand of power in the view of the mind, while divine unity and glory demand that causes withdraw their hands and have no true effect.
Jazakallah. So that was his slow reading. So any initial comments? So just as a reminder, we're studying several verses from Quran. So this part is the interpretation of the verses in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. God is the creator of all things, and he is the guardian and disposer of all affairs. To him belong the keys of the heavens and the earth. So glory to him in whose hand is the sovereignty of all things, and to him will you be all brought back. And there is not a thing but its sources and treasures inexhaustible are with us. but we only send down thereof in due and ascertainable measures. There is not a moving creature, but he has grasp of its forelock. Verily, it is my sustainer that is on a straight path. Or in another interpretation, it's translation, it is as verily, the path my sustainer is a straight path. So just keep in mind that
what the path to my straight? What?
The path to my sustainer is a straight path. So just keep in mind that we are studying these verses, and as you see, all these verses are about how entire control of all affairs, everything exists, and every relationship between existent things, and every move of these things, their future, their past, all from our perspective, it all belongs to the Creator. So this is what all these verses say, in a nutshell. And now in this section, we're studying that the causes are a veil. So because I guess it's natural to ask, you claim that he does everything. Every single action, even the fall of a leaf, goes to him. That's your claim. But what about the gravity? Or what about the other causes that I observe in reality, in creation? So it seems like not all things goes to him. It seems like he's not the guardian and disposer of all affairs. He's guardian of some affairs, and some other affairs goes to some causes. It seems, at least, apparently. And author here kind of complete the circle and says that none of these causes that you observe, they are just veils, nothing more. So this is what I understand that as a starting point. Like, I haven't discussed anything from the paragraph that we read, but this is what I understand. So any other comments?
Is there a difference? I'm just thinking, between saying that causes are veils versus saying that causes are mirrors?
So it depends on what you mean with the veil, what you mean.
One would mean that one is a reflection, like it points somewhere else, and then one is a veil that's blocking something, I guess.
I think like you can say both in different contexts. Like you can take them as veil when you're saying that you should go beyond causes and you should go where they point to. If this is the context, then they look like a veil. From another perspective, you can take them as mirror because the causes themselves also recite, glorify God, and also reflect his names, attributes. So they also act like a mirror. I guess it depends on your perspective. Oh, there's a comment from Feiha. She says, what does affair actually refers to? So I need to check the original version, the Arabic version. But my guess here, whatever happens, like all actions, all relationship between things, this is what I understand. But let's check 3962. So if anyone can check, please tell us what it really means. And meanwhile, we can start reading the paragraph, I guess. Okay, let's continue, inshallah then. A reminder within the first point. So in the first point, we mentioned two types of affirmation of divine unity. Seeing the second part that we were more interested in, the second part that we're trying to reach, second state, is that seeing the signatures of the Creator in every single thing and in every single action, in every single affair. So that was the state that we're trying to reach. So now he says, okay, let's remember something. O heedless worshipper of the causes. So one quick question, just keep in mind, if you have any answer, comments on that, please go ahead, share. Why he says, oh, heedless worshipper of causes, like who worship causes? Causes are a veil for divine dignity and grandeur, require them to be thus. But that which acts and performs matters is the power of the eternally besought one. So what really performs the matters is the power of the eternally besought one. For divine unity and glory required it to be thus. So if you look from the perspective of divine dignity and grandeur, you will see that the causes make sense. The existence of the causes makes sense. But it says if you look from the eternal besought, the divine unity and divine glory, then you will see that what performs all these matters and acts is the power of eternally besought one. I'm just reading and then we can discuss. And necessitates their independence. So their independence, the independence of the causes and the eternally besought one. So they are not same. The officials of the pre-eternal monarch. Officials of the pre-eternal monarch. So he sees causes as officials. Officials of the pre-eternal monarch are not executives of the sovereignty of dominicality. They are the heralds of his sovereignty and the observers and superintendents of his dominicality. Their purpose is to make known the dignity of power and majesty of dominicality. Their purpose is to make known the dignity of power and majesty of dominicality. So that power shouldn't be seen to be associated with base and lowly matters. So that power shouldn't be seen to be associated with base and lowly matters. Not like a human king, tainted by impotence and indigence, who therefore takes officials as partners. So he talks that there are officials of this pre-eternal monarch, but he says they are just the heralds and observers of dominicality. Not like a king who takes partners as officials. So a king, for instance, would need these partners. The president of United States, for instance, he cannot do everything by himself. Right? He has some limits. He can sign papers. He can send some funny tweets, but nothing more. Right? This is what he does all. The rest, he has to distribute among officials. So for military affairs, for instance, there's a Ministry of, Defense? Secretary of Defense. For foreign affairs, there's a Secretary or Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and so on and so forth. He needs all these officials because his impotence and indigence requires that. But with the pre-eternal monarch, author said the officials are there, but not to help him, or not to do things on behalf of him. Rather, they are there just as heralds, observers, superintendents, to make known the dignity of power and majesty of dominicality. So he makes important distinction between the two. That is to say, causes have been placed so that the dignity of power may be preserved in the superficial view of the mind. For, like the two faces of a mirror, everything has an outer face that looks to the manifest world, which resembles the mirror's colored face and may reflect various colors and states. And an inner face which looks to its maker, which resembles the mirror's shining face. In the outer face which looks to the manifest world may be states incompatible with the dignity and perfection of eternal without one's power. So causes have been put to be both the source and the means of those states. But in the inner face, that of reality, which looks to their creator, everything is transparent and beautiful. It is fitting that power should itself be associated with it. It is not incompatible with its dignity. Therefore, causes are purely apparent and in the inner face of the things, and in reality have no true effect. So I spoke a lot. So whoever wants to start the discussion, please go ahead. Yeah, also please.
Assalamu alaikum. So going back to Fariha's question, what she was asking about affairs. So the author uses another word here, matters. So everything that you see as happening in your experience, whatever happens, is eventually an effect that is happening. So, when the author says, "Oh, heedless worshipper of causes," right? So this is basically this section, as he says, is a reminder within the first point. Now, earlier he made the point about as Abdur Rahman was summarizing it, about the way the two different affirmations happen, where one is more of more like a claim, and like you quickly jump to a conclusion and say, yeah, everything belongs to God, He is one, there is no partner. But the second one is something that, as Berkan also mentioned, where you are seeing the signature of everything. You are investigating more, and you are seeing into what the existence of the thing is. And what you see is more of the something that shows you the quality, such as power, that there is some wisdom there is some will. So from that standpoint, as this reminder is coming in, I think the author is trying to make a point that in the first one can fall into the causes and not seeing them as a veil, because there is not much investigation that is happening. But if we pay attention and really look into the creation and see that everything has a sign, has a seal, has a signature, as coming from something that must be absolute, or must have absolute will, power, knowledge, then one can realize and can come out of this causal relationships and see that whatever we are perceiving as, initially we may see them as causes, but then they are actually not the actual source that is doing all the, bringing things into the way they are, or the result, what can be responsible for the result or the effect that we are seeing. So everything that we initially were perceiving as being the source is now a veil, and that allows us to see that yes, there is, there is a source that is absolute and powerful that is behind that. So that at least is the start from what I would say. Yes, I will pause here and hear other comments. Thank you.
Well, Feria, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Asim. So the affairs has to do with the state of things, how, like you said, that things are brought into existence. As far as I'm concerned, applying it to me, right? So whatever is imparted on me, whatever feelings or emotions that I'm going through, and then through, like, by utilizing my feelings, emotions, or state of being, whatever analysis I come up with, as in pointing to its source. So every time I'm able to connect whatever is it that I'm experiencing within my state of being to its source, that can be considered as like, these are affairs where I'm in a relationship with the source of my existence, and it all points back to it, right? So that source being the one that's bringing about everything into existence, including the analysis that I made to go through to come to the conclusion.
Jazakallah khair. And others, comments, ideas, questions, objections? Oh, Karim, please go ahead. Oh, Karim, we cannot hear you. Probably there's something wrong with your mic. Just check it, please, and then you can speak later. Still, we cannot hear you. No, still cannot hear you. So anyone else? While Karim is dealing with his microphone. Karim, you can also write as a comment, like your question or your comment, if you cannot fix your microphone. So I will mute you. Mute you. Yeah. Okay, please go ahead. Any questions? So Hatice Beyza, she asks, what is the relationship between divine dignity and grandeur and apparent causes? I'm not clear on how apparent causes are necessary due to them. I'm not clear how apparent causes are necessary due to them.
I think it's just not necessary due to them, but it's just one reason for causes, because I think it's going to go deeper into it. But like, just on a very, I guess, maybe a shallow level, one good reason for causes that we can see is that if I see something evil happening, like someone is oppressing someone else right in front of me, or someone is doing a bad act, then I don't immediately blame God. I blame the person that did it. And causes keeps God's dignity in that sense.
Yes, it keeps God's dignity. It was a little bit, funny way.
But I agree,
But
it's not such
from
a
my
strong...
perspective, yes, it gives me a buffer zone before I start, let's say,
blaming God.
harming my understanding of the dignity, divine dignity.
Right. But I also agree that it's not like the only reason. I mean, it's not necessary.
Mm-hmm. I guess when he says, when Hatice Beyza said, due to them, she meant divine dignity and grandeur, as author says. The author says divine dignity and grandeur requires causes to be so. So that's what she meant. Otherwise, she didn't mean that causes are there only because divine dignity. She didn't mean that. But what you said is perfectly still right.
Because for me, I was thinking the same thing. It's just, when I see something bad, actually, I just immediately jump to, why did God do that, actually?
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so it doesn't act like a veil.
That means you like a real...
I don't keep that dignity. I immediately blame it.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah.
I don't know if it's a good thing. Maybe causes do have a purpose.
Today, I was talking to a friend on phone because he's kind of sick. Another friend was with me, so we're having a meeting, and they start talking about his sickness, and they listed a lot of reasons, like, oh, maybe it's because of the changing weathers, maybe it's because of the allergy, maybe, and I was saying, alhamdulillah, there's no God in the list. There's no God to blame.
Yeah, it is. It might be the good one.
So yeah, any other comments? So that's a good question, Hatice, thank you. And the rest of the paragraph, I guess, discusses this exactly. So any other comments with this part? So let me mute our mic so that others will have to speak. Okay, it seems. Oh yeah, I saw a hand. Please, whoever he was or she was, please go ahead. Before that, let me read Karim's comment. He says, after understanding the idea that apparent causes are veils and we should seek the source of the causes behind them. Is it causes or causes?
Causes.
Okay.
I mean, what both of them.
Okay. After understanding the idea of apparent causes are veils, and we should seek the source of causes behind them, once we understand this, he says, what other things can we gain from studying causes? What other things can we gain from studying causes? So there are some tricky words there, like gain, and then we should seek the source of the causes. So Karim, if you can fix your mic, I would highly appreciate to listen your comments. No, we cannot hear you. So I guess we don't have any choice but just speculate about what you meant, and probably we will.
Right now.
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, perfect. Assalamu
Alaikum.
So I know I'm jumping in a little late, so maybe my understanding is a bit flawed, but what I wanted to say is the idea that I got from what we read so far is that the causes that we observe, and sometimes people can be misled in thinking that's the end-all, be-all, and that's why they can be worshippers of causes. But if we understand that causes are veils and they mask behind them absolute will, absolute knowledge, and absolute power, I'm saying after reaching that conclusion or that understanding, some people might get into the assumption that what's the point of studying causes if that's the only conclusion that needs to be sought, and why should we bother ourselves in observing and studying causes? I'm not sure if my question makes sense. Let me know if that makes sense.
To me, your question makes perfect sense. Just I have a few questions, counter questions. What do you mean exactly with studying causes? I mean, I'm assuming you are from an engineering background or something similar, maybe medicine. So what do you mean exactly with studying causes?
Yes, I guess you understood me correctly. It's like whatever disciplines we have in terms of natural sciences or even social sciences right now with psychology and neuroscience, engineering, whatever. People are fixated on finding causality and making connections with things and understanding how either emotions or even just natural phenomenons work. They're all natural phenomenons in a sense, but my question is, should we keep pursuing that route after understanding these conclusions about them being veiled, or should that be the only conclusion and that's it?
Again, great question. So everybody in this group, they all have quit their job after discussing this course, and none of us working anymore.
I just started.
Oh, yeah, you just started working?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not quitting.
No, the joke aside, yeah, that's a valid, very valid question indeed. Let's keep this question in mind just for a little while until we study the paragraph. But inshallah, remind us if we forget to come back to this question, because this is really a valid question, and alhamdulillah, fortunately, we have the expert here. Studying causes. So inshallah we will go back to the question. So any comments regarding the relationship between dignity of the power and causes, and so actually, like going back to Karim's question, the first part of the Karim questions, where he says, once we understand that causes are just wills and we should seek the source behind them. So what do we really mean, like seeking the source behind them? Because author says the same thing here. And he says they're just like mirrors, one side of the mirrors, one side with causes, and how they affect, how they quote-unquote create effects in one side of the mirror. But then he says in the other side of the mirror, in reality, you reach the eternally besought one or pre-eternal monarch. That's what he says. So what does it mean really, like seeking the source behind causes? Is it just saying that, oh yeah, God creates everything? If this is what we mean with seeking the source behind them, I guess this goes back to the first kind of affirmation of divine unity that we studied last week. Everything was created by God, everything is created by God, we say that, and that's all, we stop there. In the second type of affirmation, author said, you see signature of the divine source in each cause and effect affair. So what does it mean, seeing his signatures? So is it just saying that everything created by God? Or individually just saying that, oh yeah, this is created by God? Or is it something more than that? So alhamdulillah, we have a lot of friends here, so I'm sure some of them will help us. Let me read Faria's comment meanwhile. She says, we are made in a way where we seek the cause, purpose of things. We seek the cause, purpose of things. But what the universe offers is temporary causes, and I desire, or we desire, a permanent cause, purpose to things. The second cause was with capital C. Something that makes sense to my human qualities. So, yeah, let me reiterate my question. So what do you mean by seeking the source or reaching the source behind the wave, behind causes?
I might have missed, but did you address comment of Hatice Beyza?
What was it?
What is the relationship between divine dignity and grandeur and apparent causes?
Not really. You can go ahead.
You can go ahead. Like we give an example and stop there because the rest of the paragraph would discuss, but go ahead, please.
I'm trying to understand because the language is a little bit awkward in here. As if divine grandeur requires it. What does this mean? So the way I'm trying to understand this is, so I do observe causality in existence, and I also can conclude, which within the rest of the text is going to make the point that causes are really a veil. So, but still, then comes the question, why are they in there? What's the point of having those causes? So I guess in this paragraph, at least the beginning of this paragraph, and also the rest, author is addressing this question, saying that there must exist this causal relationship for you, for me, for my perception. It is necessary because from, I guess this is what you were saying, maybe I overheard it. From one angle, I do observe through causes, I do realize that the grandeur and dignity of the Creator is becoming apparent to me through existence of those causes. So not the other way around, like I'm imagining a dignified Creator, and his dignity requires that he should throw some causes in there so that he doesn't dirty his hands with just those lowly jobs.
I don't want to create these causes, but it's all my divine dignity that I have to.
yeah, I don't want to do the dirty job, so let's. But instead, I do through causes that I realize that the source is, or the dignified or grandness idea comes to me through presence of causes. And on the flip side, the causes shouldn't be more than that, because within existence, I do observe that they are not really the doers, the agents. And how do I know that? The unity shows me that causes, whoever is moving a single particle must be the doer of the revolver of the galaxies and everything. So the grandeur doesn't allow causes to have actual unity, doesn't allow the causes to have any real effect. So in this sense, again, not allow doesn't mean that from top to down, but I do observe unity in existence, and this pattern that I observe forces me to say that causes cannot have. So the language is being a little bit tricky in here. So it was a good explanation.
So again, for the Hatice Beyza says TY.
Thank
I
you.
think it means thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure you knew that though.
Or maybe she meant Thai, like in Turkish, it's like a small horse.
Thai?
Pony. Suhail, please go ahead.
I just wanted to point out where Nursi says in the paragraph, their purpose is to make known the dignity and power and majesty of dominicality, so that power should not be seen to be associated with base and lowly matters. Or in other words, causes are for me. They don't exist for him or for his sake, but for me. The point being, I couldn't know about his absolute power, dominion, except by looking to causes. Or in other words, the fact that things are happening in the universe with kind of sort of a magical a magical effect. Like you do something and something happens. That's the only way I can appreciate his absolute power and dominicality. His hand that is present in every aspect of the universe. Without causes, there's nothing to even speak of, or apparent causes, so to speak. So they exist for my sake, and as he says, people don't realize that the purpose of them is not for their in and of themselves to exist, but to simply be a point of reference which I can use to see the manifestation of his power. Otherwise, I can't physically witness his absolute power. I can't actually experience it directly. There's no way. And the fact that causes have, as he calls them, are base and lowly, in that they're transient. Things are transient in this world. And I guess what he also means by base and lowly is in that, causes concern even the things you think that they shouldn't concern, things that are not as pure. For example, let's say for the human body, man's body, his kidneys cleanse his blood from all sort of toxins so that he excretes it out. That's a cause, but so as to not sort of dirty his power and dominicality, that thing exists. But it exists so you could see how absolute his dominion is, his power is. So that to me is what he's saying, is that you need these even in the most base of things to appreciate what his dominion is, but you need them also so you can, in even the most base of things, to appreciate the purity of his power. It's sort of a contradiction in a way. But without even the most base of things, you couldn't really appreciate how perfect his power is, that it doesn't even leave the most base of matters untouched.
Jazakallah khair. So I want to, if you don't mind, I want to reiterate highlight what you just said one more time, because it's really important, and it also kind of answers to maybe Karim's question, that it is through causes that we observe, that we learn about the source and about, in this sense, divine dignity, for instance. This is how we know our Creator, how we know about our Sustainer. We cannot just, as Yusuf was saying, imagine someone. Through causes you know about him. So going back to Karim's question, then what happens once we understand causes are veils and there's a source behind them? This question is not well formed, because there is no such thing as once we understand. There's like you understand you learn about the Creator and then continue your life with this understanding. There's no such thing. The only way which makes you connected with your Creator is the creation. Because you are a physical being created in this universe, and this universe, the causes around you, is the only means for you to connect with your Creator. Whether material causes, whether non-material causes, doesn't matter. As you were saying, Karim, people studying human psychology within causal language. So all these causes of the creation, let's put it that way, not only let's not restrict ourselves with the concept of cause, but the creation is the only means to know your Creator. So there is no such understanding of Creator outside the creation. So you cannot stop studying creation to know your Creator. You have to continue studying creation to know your Creator. But this also means the only reason that you study creation must be knowing your Creator. Otherwise, again, going back to the second part of your question, there is no such thing as studying the creation. I mean, there is such a thing. We do it all the time, but at least in Quran says, there's a claim that the only reason that you are created and the creation was created, the universe was created, is worshiping me, meaning knowing me. So from this perspective, there's no such thing as studying creation for the sake of creation. It would take you, as I'm using in quotes, it will take you to the hellfire, studying creation for the sake of creation. But again, to know your Creator, you have to stay in the creation, this is what you are, and study creation. Of course, studying creation may change from one person to another person. For one, it's just preparing food. For another, just loving and spending time with the family. For Karim, maybe it's something else. But at least this is what I understand. So Karim says, so they, in parentheses, apparent causes, are moment by moment lessons and conclusions we drove about the almighty source of existence. So yes, they are moment by moment means of knowing your creator. From them, every single moment, you reach a conclusion about all your creator. And Farah says, I'm sure he explained things better, he says the same cause carrier of a beautiful name can be an angel making known my God, or the same angel can fall and be an enemy for me, where it appears as source and not a sign anymore. Very beautiful. Cause as angel is the immaterial pointer on material things, or the cause is the material itself. So the way I understand in a simple words that the same cause could be means of reaching your creator if you take it as a messenger of your creator, if you take it as an angel. But the same source could be also a means to nowhere but itself, and eventually leading you to hellfire. I mean, he didn't say hellfire, but this is my imposing, because I'm the oppression, oppressing man. Feria says, the true creation, there is apparent causes, one gets to conclude its creator. Alhamdulillah. So, if there are any, if you need to feel the need for correcting what I just said, or maybe adding up, please, Yusuf, go ahead.
In here, I am reading the sentence that starts with, the officials of the pre-eternal monarch are not executives of the sovereignty of the locality, they are the heralds. So in here, Nursi is now coming up with a new definition. Because I'm asking myself, what do I mean when I say a cause? What's an example for a cause? Like, a tree is a cause of fruit. But apparently, Nursi is now saying that they're officials. Because to me, for example, official of Trump in the post office is the guy that delivers the post. But he says they're not executives, meaning that when I say cause is not as you think about it. The causal relationship, as you think about it, does not apply in reality. So the actual duty of causes in this existence is being a herald, plus being an observer. Being a herald part is mentioned as angels pointing to the source, to their own source. So if there were no pointers, no reminders to me of the source, I wouldn't be able to know about the source. Nursi had something on top of that. He says they are heralds, but they are conscious heralds. They themselves are observers of what do they shout out, what do they remind to other people. So this part is important because as we will come to the end of the paragraph or the next paragraph, he's going to bring the topic to the angels as an example within this context. He will give an example, and the example is going to be, again, not a layer. First, it's going to be like some sort of diseases, but then will come an angel. So why is the Creator talking about an angel as an example for a cause? So in there, we say that death is apparently the outcome, the message, let's say, but it's coming through first as a disease. But behind this disease, there is another apparent cause, which is an angel. So now, disease is carrying me some sort of a message about the source of healer or the giver of death. But on top of that, there is another cause behind it, which is a conscious being, not only declaring the meaning of death, but also aware of the message, such a message. So what does that mean? What does this imply to me? We can talk about that. What does it change that this official is aware of what he is declaring or demonstrating. But I guess this is an important part at least to underline for that.
There's one comment from Faraz. He reminds us the second type of affirmation and says, without angels / causes, no affirmation of divine seal is possible. So if we go back to the second type of affirmation where author was saying that you see the divine seal, you see the divine seal in every single thing. And Faraz says like the seal is, the way it manifests itself in this creation is the causes that we see. Suhail, please go ahead.
I just wanted to bring up the point again where he says, for like the two faces of a mirror, everything has an outer face that looks to the manifest world, which resembles the mirror's colored face and may reflect various colors and states, and an inner face which looks to its maker, which resembles the mirror's shining face. And the outer face, which looks to the manifest world, may be states incompatible with the dignity and perfection of the eternally besought one's power. So causes have been put to be both the source and the means of those states, but in the inner face, that of reality, which looks to their creator, everything is transparent and beautiful. It is fitting that power should be associated with it. So to me, it's as if, in a sense, what he's saying is the manifest world has causes associated, that you see apparent causes, because in and of itself it's incompatible with the dignity and perfection of the eternally besought one's power. So what I see, what I observe, what I experience is not befitting to absolute perfection. So causes simply serve as a means to know absolute perfection, the perfection and absolute power, because the manifest world is not worthy of its dignity and perfection. So causes just are there as a placeholder to refer to them. So in a sense, but what he's saying is, at least to me, what you conclude though, so what is ghaib in a sense? What is unseen? So one's conclusion is perfect. So the perfection of the inner aspect of things, that looks to the creator, that look to the angels, that's beautiful and transparent. So perfection is in one's conclusion, because one's conclusion refers to that which is unseen, and that which is unseen is perfect. The manifest world is not that case. It's by its own definition, it is imperfect as it relates to perfection. It's not perfection itself. So it's, going back to the beginning of the paragraph, O heedless worshipper of causes, causes are a veil. Man desires perfection, but he thinks he finds perfection in the manifest world, but really perfection is in one's conclusions, or the thing which causes look to. So that's what he really should be interested in, as Birkan was saying, not studying causes for their own sake, but studying causes as a means to perfection, to obtaining or arriving to perfection, because conclusions, just because my mind is on that sort of thing, but conclusions are what one is after, because they concern perfection and they are the perfection of one's experience in this world.
Any other comments? Otherwise, I will continue with the following paragraphs. Rashid, you have a question? No? Any comment from Nibras?
No.
Okay, he's listening very carefully. Alhamdulillah. Okay, let's continue then. Before continuing, I was reluctant to say it because it's kind of tangential, but So going back to Karim's question, like studying causes. So I guess this reminds me, so in Turkey, like old times, not very old times, recent old times, when people wanted to taint or how to say kötülemek, like
No.
make it look ugly. The idea of religion, when they wanted to make religion look ugly, the unbeliever part of the Turkey, let's say, in this political environment. So what they did, one of the things they did was they invented some religious groups, which looked like religious groups, but they were doing really bad things. Like there were all these scandals and so on and so forth. But later we learned, they were all played acts. So I guess this is a very good strategy to make something beautiful ugly in people's eyes, so that they will stay away from it. So I guess this is what we see with this studying nature, studying causes. So these causes, as everyone here says, they are our only means to know our Creator. But people, again, I'm talking about imaginary people, not to blame someone. But people invented some professions in which they also study causes, but for the sake of causes, to, let's say, send a rocket to moon, to make the corn production more productive, effective, whatever, to cure some illnesses, to make more profits, so on and so forth. And what they end up with was so ugly. When you look at these, the studying causes, studying nature, all you see is atomic bombs, people killing each other, people stealing from one to, from others. All this money is going to military expenses and so on, and even the medical, studies, just to make people even sicker. So studying causes become so ugly that we refrained ourselves from studying causes. But author here says studying causes is your only means to know the other side of the mirror. But don't study it like them.
Don't study them as causes,
Yes.
but study them as heralds.
Exactly. So there's nothing ugly with causes. The way people study them is ugly. Of course, like a big question, how you study causes as heralds. I guess that's the reason, the biggest reason we have these weekly discussions, several across the country. Different days, different people coming together, trying to understand it, alhamdulillah. So anyway, let's continue with the rest of the text, inshallah. A further instance of wisdom is in apparent causes is this: causes have been put so that unjust complaints and baseless objections should be directed at them and not at the absolutely just one. For the faults arise from them, from their incapacity and lack of ability. A comparison is narrated which is in the form of a subtle example illustrating this mystery. The angel Azrael, Angel Azrael, peace be upon him. Very interesting, right? The angel Azrael, peace be upon him, say to Almighty God, your servants will complain about me while I'm carrying out my duty of taking possession of the spirits of the dying. So while I'm the, from a traditional point of view, I'm the angel of death. So I will take the spirits away from them, taking the possession of the spirits of dying. So they will hate me. They will call me as angel of death. Right? They will depict me as a dark person with a hoodie. Dark hoodie, is it hoodie? Called? With a, what is it? The sharp thing.
The Reaper's sight.
Yeah. And he knew that, people would depict him that way. And Almighty God said to him, through the tongue of wisdom, I shall leave the veil of disasters and illnesses between you and my servants, so that the complaints will be directed at them, and they will not be indignant at you. So I will keep these, I will put these causes as veils between you and people, so that people will complain about these causes, not about you. So see, illnesses are a veil. What are imagined to be the bad things at the appointed hour are attributed to them. And what are in reality the good things in the spirits of dying being seized are attributed to Azrael. Peace be upon him. So bad things goes to causes, good things goes to Azrael. Peace be upon him. And his duty. Azrael is also veiled. He is a supervisor of the duty of that duty and the veil to divine power, so that certain conditions when spirits are seized, which are apparently unkind and are inappropriate to the perfection of mercy, be attributed to him. So that certain conditions when spirits are seized, which are apparently unkind and are inappropriate to the perfection of mercy, be attributed to him, to Azrael. Yes, dignity and grandeur demand that causes are a veil to the hand of power in the view of the mind, while divine unity and glory demand that causes withdraw their hands and have no true effect. Alhamdulillah, such a lovely text. So yeah, scene is yours. Please go ahead. There's a comment from Muhammad Said. Let me read it. Inshallah. He says, how the things and situations become clear and perfect is by connecting the inner aspects of things to the establisher of the causes. So things and situations become clear and perfect, he says, by attributing them, by connecting them, or connecting their inner aspect to the establisher of the causes. Otherwise, it is incomplete. When I just judge the situation by my observation without including my own human response in it, when I just judge the situation by my observation without including my own human response in it, that what makes the things look ugly. Alhamdulillah. So I'm muting our mic, so that maybe other. Alhamdulillah, very insightful thoughts. So Suhail, I will give you the mics back. There are some comments from Hatice Beyza and then Faraz. So while I was reading the comment of the Hatice, I said, oh, probably Faraz would say, I totally agree. And then he didn't surprise me and he said yes to Hatice Beyza. So Alhamdulillah. So, but I also agree with her, yeah. So Hatice Beza says, only by seeing the angels through the apparent causes, only by seeing the angels through the apparent causes. So I guess this is really important. It puts a lot to the paragraph that we read. Alhamdulillah, thank you, Hatice. Only by seeing the angels through the apparent causes can these apparent causes seem beautiful to me. Otherwise, if I don't see the angel in the causes, if I don't come to the conclusion of the absolute nature of the causer of the causes, everything to me is ugly and blameworthy. So within each cause, you need to see the angel, then things become beautiful to me. So Faraz, after he says yes to Hatice Beza, then he says, a curse regime from which I seek refuge. So is this for me, my comment, Faraz, or is the continuation of Hatice's comment? So anyway, but yeah, what Hatice says, alhamdulillah, very to the point. Asim says, can Faraz please explain the last point? Before that, Suhail is waiting, so please go ahead, and then if he likes, Faraz can explain what he meant with the last part.
You know, kind of along with Hatice was saying, in that, you know, the perfection of one's conclusion, because it concerns perfection. Conclusions are perfect because they concern the perfection of the creator. You know, they are protected even from man's sort of, you know, imperfection. That's what complaining is. It's sort of imperfection in man. Because he doesn't understand the absolute wisdom in things, so he complains. And he directs them at the apparent things themselves. So people, you know, everyday example, like I see it firsthand, people complaining about the weather, cursing the wind, you know, cursing time, this and that, you know, speaking of illnesses as like evils and as enemies. So things get blamed. The manifest world gets blamed, but the angels don't get blamed, in that one's conclusion is free from imperfection, because of the manifest world. So in this regard, his dignity, the dignity and grandeur of Almighty God is preserved, and therefore his sort of angelic representation in this world are protected as well. Each, I mean, the angels, the things, the manifest things protect the angels, and the angels protect him from man's sort of imperfection. But it's only when we see the angels being carrying out their duty to demonstrate causes and then essentially reach him, do we sort of free ourselves from our imperfection. So that's what I wanted to take away from that. Or in other words, man cannot attain or achieve or strive to perfection of the self unless he looks beyond the veil. Otherwise, as you said, he's in hell. That's an imperfect state to be in.
Thank you. Faraz, would you like to elaborate why you like to regime me?
Of course, I meant you. So I don't have the text in front of me, unfortunately, and I'm in a situation, so I don't want to distract the discussion. Everything is, I think we're following the text to you guys, and it's very helpful. Now, maybe take it as a side point or take it or leave it, but because Asim asked, when I see somebody complain, I take it as an affirmation of a truth, the Quran's truth, that shaitan is rajim. So when I see someone complaining about death, about weather, about illness, I find it quite fascinating that people are not indifferent to suffering. Nobody, you have to try to numb yourself. It's not a natural state of being. You have to ignore, you make an effort to ignore complaining, or you have to, do some practice, write a diary, gratitude diary or something to, But I find it very interesting that in the, as a human being, anywhere I looked, I found people being upset with things, cursing things that they don't like, that don't satisfy them. So to me, that's just, I take it to be an affirmation of when the Quran speaks to me that there's an enemy, and you should say, A'udhu billah minash shaitan ar-rajim. So when I hear this, how do I know? How can I confirm this, that this is true of my reality? So I find that, in the kind of thinking that we are talking about, and how we understand cause and angel and the angelic aspect, and so I understand all the time I'm witnessing around me is everyone demonstrating the truth of this, that they find so many things blameworthy, ugly, for they want away, nothing to do with it. They wanted to get away from them. And that's to me, they're cursing the shaitan. Of course, they may not be aware that that's what they're doing, but if they were interested in understanding why is it that they are cursing illness, is there something wrong with them? Should they, is illness to be liked? How can what meaning can illness be given? How can they keep their sense of, yes, I don't like illness. And, somebody comes and tells me, no, love illness. And so I say, but I have a natural disease. I find it so like in me, whenever I do feel some things I want to get away from. And to me, it's very interesting. The Quran preserves that sense that you will have something that you will curse so that you will turn your face another way. And so something you will go towards, and you will live in this, this is your reality. So it's a more adequate, more full picture of reality than a simple that forget about the problems, just be happy in a superficial way. So, okay, sorry, sir, thank you.
Jazakallah khair, Faraz. That was beautiful. So please go ahead.
While reading the text, if reading it in a wrong way, I can take it as if in the outer aspect of things, they're ugly. To cover them up, God put causes. As if, it's like, for example, you release the first version of your software, there is a bug in your code, so you release some, package, what do they call it? Patch to cover up for it. So this can be read as such, which sounds a little bit awkward, as if, well, God created things, they have two aspects. In the other aspect, they're a little bit ugly. This is why he came up with those causes to cover up the...
That's interesting reading.
to cover up, because while reading it, I said, well, why did the Creator come up with just the shining aspect of things? Why is this other aspect out there? So, as for the point that Faraz was saying, in my training, in my existence, I am meant to dislike something. This is part of my training. I'm going to dislike it. From there, I'm going to keep searching and then find the shiny part of it. And so by design, this is how I am learning. Why am I set to learn as such? I don't know, but I find myself in such an existence that some of the things are being taught to me, like initially I am having this toothache, and from toothache, I am starting to appreciate that I used to have health and how valuable health is, so on and so forth. So this part, I guess, once I realize it, then toothache itself becomes beautiful for me. So this sort of line of thought is there for my training.
And like this ugly part or blame being directed to causes, the way I understand it is, if you stay within causes, if you do not reach the angelic side of the things, if you stay within the causes, in the causal realm, then you will find nothing but things to blame. So if you live your life within a causal perspective, then you will start cursing things. You will start blaming things. And this is meant to be that way. Because you approaching from things from a satanic perspective, not angelic perspective. And Satan is to be cursed. So I see it as like a kind of ladder. I guess this is a really nice design of learning, as you said. You first face the other face of things, interact with other face of things, the causes. And you look at them as causes and nothing more. You say, okay, the tree creates apple. Gravity pulls the mass. And then you find it ugly. From there, you reach the angelic side. Things becomes a messenger for you, herald. You start listening to them. Things becomes beautiful. Things become conscious. They start speaking to you. And from there, you reach your third step, your source, the eternal source. So you, by climbing these steps, in every moment, you know about your Creator. Otherwise, as you said, like, as if it's not a mistake, or it's not a, at least from my perspective, I don't see it that way. So I see illness, I don't like it, but from this dislike, when I take my dislike as a messenger, as an angel, and then the illness as a messenger and angel, I reach a conclusion of the healer.
So death is created, and I am meant to dislike death. So, but once I understand the message behind death, it becomes lovely and beautiful. But initially, I am meant to dislike death. So then there's this, so in order for my education to continue, I gave this example before to you guys, but since I like the example so much, and for the sake of online participants, also because I like the example so much, I will give it again. So my advisor.
Oh, advisor?
My advisor.
I was expecting the uncle-father example.
Yeah, my advisor's.
Oh, okay.
Brother.
Yeah. No, I was actually like, I was about to ask you to tell this story. So no worries.
This is a real story about my advisor's older brother. So, so he was when he was in high school, he disliked schooling. So without telling to the father, he dropped out of the school. He stopped going to the school. Then 2 weeks later, the municipal of the school calls the father saying that your son is not coming to school. The father goes and asks to the son. The son says, well, yeah, I don't want to go. He says, okay, what do you want to go? He says, I want to work. And my advisor's father has a mechanic shop for trucks. His brother is also in the same business. My advisor's uncle. So the father says to son, okay, don't work in my place because I don't want to hurt father-son relationship, but go and work at your uncle's shop. So he goes there, starts working in there, but behind the scenes, father goes and tells to the uncle that treat him so badly, give him a lesson. But the son is not aware of that. So, of course, the uncle communicates this with his workers, and the workers are just cursing the kid and then saying that bring me that wrench. He brings the wrench. He says, no, this is the wrong one. He throws the wrench to his head and saying that bring one larger, bring one smaller, whatever. So he's very tough with him.
That's how I treat my
workers. So after a week, he goes back to high school. So he says, okay, this job is not for me. And eventually this person is now a medical doctor. So of course, after that things pass, the truth is being revealed to him, and he's happy with the outcome. Because he was meant to go through this education because he needed to value the importance of studying and learning in this metaphor. But his whims initially told him that, well, studying is nonsense, just cut the corner short, earn money quickly. And then eventually he realized that what he disliked led him to something better. While this was happening, the father didn't hurt father-son relationship. Because if he didn't do it behind the scenes, the son would be very much offended if he knew that it was his father who is cursing him, who was throwing wrench to his head. But this was a necessary way of teaching him what he was doing is wrong. So he worked behind the scenes as such. But later on, once he realizes that the causes have no effect, it was all his father who was acting at all stages. Now he still keeps being in good terms with the father. So I guess human education or training is necessary to be in this way.
Any other comments? Other examples or objections to the example? So if there are no other comments, we can continue with the second flash. Any volunteers to read it? Is there any volunteer from online participants? No? Okay. Brahma, would you like to read for us? Brahma. To preserve my dignity, I first ask online participants so that you would blame them, not me.
But because I'm very pious, I immediately blame you. Second flash. Look at this garden of the universe, this orchard of the earth. Look carefully at the beautiful face of the heavens gilded with stars. You will see that on all the artifacts spread out and scattered over them are stamps particular to the creator of all things, and all creatures are seals special, and on all creatures are seals special to the maker of all things. And on the levels of being written on the pages of night and day, and summer and winter, all published by the pen of power, are inimitable, illustrious signatures of an all-glorious maker, and all-beauteous creator. We shall now mention a few of those stamps, seals, and signatures by way of example. For example, of the innumerable stamps, consider this one out of many placed on life. He makes everything out of one thing and makes one thing out of everything. For he makes the innumerable members and systems of animals out of a fluid and also out of simple water which is drunk. Thus, to make one thing everything is surely the work of one possessing absolute power. and one who, with perfect order, transforms into a particular body numerous substances from the innumerable foods eaten, whether plant or animal, and weaves from them a particular skin, and makes from them members, is surely one powerful over all things, and one knowing of all things. Indeed, the creator of life and death administers life through his wisdom in this workshop of the world, through a law issuing from his command, so miraculous that only one who holds the whole universe in the grasp of his power could apply that law and enforce it. Thus, if your mind is not extinguished and your heart not blind, you will understand that what makes one thing with perfect ease and order, and makes everything one thing skillfully with perfect balance and order, is a stamp particular to the maker of everything, and a seal special to the creator of all things. For example, if you see that together with weaving 100 rolls of broadcloth and various other cloths like silk or cambric from a single ounce of cotton, a wonder worker makes many foods from it like halva and pastries. Then you see that he takes a handful of iron and stone, honey and butter, water and earth, and makes some fine gold. You would certainly pronounce him to possess unique art, for all the elements of the earth are subjugated to his command, and all the substances of the earth subject to his word. Indeed, the manifestation of power and wisdom in life is 1,000 times more wondrous than this example. Thus, one stamp on life out of many.
Would you like to share your initial thoughts as well?
I have no initial thoughts.
Okay. Asha, would you like to? Okay. Any comments? Any volunteers to lead the discussion with this part? Suhail, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I think he's very self-explanatory, but to me the most important takeaway is how he, in modern education, things are compartmentalized. You have this science over there, that science over there, something else over there, and then what you believe in, that has nothing to do with those things. And if you think about it, there is no compartmentalization of things, because as he says, on the artifacts spread out over the entire cosmos are the stamps particular to the creator of all things, and all creatures are sealed special to the maker of all things, and on the levels of being written on the pages of night and day and summer and winter, all published by the pen and power, are inimitable, illustrious signatures of the all-glorious maker and all-beauteous creator. So it's no matter what you're studying, what cause you're looking at, what aspect of the universe you're interested in, you can't escape his seal of divine unity. Can't escape his pen of power, his signature on things, because no one can imitate it. No author can imitate his signature. And unfortunately, we think kind of, I'm in this subject, and this is the way to, like, people who study the physical sciences, this is the way to truth, but every way is a path to the truth. So that was one thing I had thought about with regards to this section.
Thank you. Any other person? Ayşenur, would you like to share with us which part you don't agree, find clear? No? Okay. Abdurrahman, you have a question, I guess?
I have a question?
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't. I didn't realize.
Okay. So let's start reading from the beginning. Look at this garden of the universe, this orchard.
Orchard, like a garden. Yeah.
Okay. orchard of the earth, look carefully at the beautiful face of the heavens, gilded with stars.
Decorated.
You will see that on all the artifacts spread out and scattered over them are stamps particular to the creator of all things. Look at this garden of the universe. So this is how Nursid approaches the problem all the time, right? He says, look at the universe. Again, going back to Karim's question, look at the universe, then you will see the stamps. But don't look at the universe for the sake of universe. Look at the universe to see the stamps. This orchard of the earth, look carefully at the beautiful face of the heavens, gilded with stars. Look carefully. Not just, oh yeah, it is beautiful, alhamdulillah, subhanallah, such a beautiful creation. Look carefully. See the stamps. You will see that on all the artifacts spread out and scattered over them are stamps particular to the creator of all things, and all creatures are seals special to the maker of all things. And on the levels of being written on the pages of night and day, and summer and winter, all published by the pen of power. I'm looking at Yusuf. Pen of power. Would you like to comment on that? Come on, this is your special topic. All published by the pen of power are inimitable, illustrious signatures of an all-glorious maker, an all-beauteous creator. Inimitable, what does it mean?
I'm not sure.
Not able to be imitated.
Oh, okay, wait, thank you. Illustrious signatures. So signatures, but they're also illustrious, like they shout at you. We shall now mention just a few, he says, and then he talks about he makes one thing out of everything, everything out of one thing. He gives some examples. Everything is made of water, and then a particular body, just one body, is made of everything eaten, breathed, and so on. So one thing from everything, everything from one thing. This is, I guess, really, really important. Suhail was highlighting this part as well. So you cannot separate things and you cannot study them in isolation. Everything as a whole tells you about the creator. So any thoughts about this one thing out of everything, everything out of one thing?
Let's say, just like mind exercise, it wasn't made like that. Like one thing was, everything was not created like in like completely from one thing or like that interweave with each other. I'm trying to imagine like how it would have been. Like I guess it would have been like the first scenario where I would have seen, like let's say, separate creations that had nothing to do with each other, but you could still see that each one took a lot of power to create or a lot of wisdom to create. However, you didn't see how they connected with each other. In such a case, you would be like the first scenario where you maybe you couldn't say that it was just the same person, or you would just be like, yeah, only one person is powerful enough to do all that. But when everything is so interweaved with each other, it's so connected, then it becomes very clear that everything that you see, it has a signature that belongs to only one person. So it becomes like the second scenario.
So divine unity is being illustrated through this interconnectedness of things.
Right.
Suhail, please go ahead.
You know, so Abdurrahman was saying, you know, every element, base element, would need to have its own cause of existence. And not only that, for there to be any sort of, let's say, even a molecule of water, one molecule, you would need those two causes of existence to mutually agree to work together and not to supersede one or the other. And that's just for one molecule of water. Now, if you imagine all different compositions of things in the universe, they're innumerable. You can't really get to the end of them. So, only one with absolute power and dominion who controls all elements can arrange one element in all things, like water in all animate creatures, and bring together all or many elements in one creature. So the human being, let's say, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, and many other elements into one creature, then only one who has power and dominion over all the elements could do so. So one thing looks to everything and everything looks to one thing. But in that same way, if you just kind of stay there, if you just say, oh, that's interesting, water is very fundamental to life. That's why these cosmologists, they try to find extraterrestrial life by looking for water on these other planets. But if you just stop there, then you don't really come to a conclusion about absolute power and dominion. So the point isn't one looks to everything, everything looks to one thing, but the fact that is demonstrates the seal of divine unity.
So we have around 7 minutes. So I'm sure the people like Mohammed, Hatice, Fariha, Aisha, Nur, Rasim, they're waiting their time to speak. So it is time to speak. We have only 7 minutes. Please do not refrain yourself. So any other comments? Otherwise, I will read the last paragraph and then we can conclude, inshallah. Or I'm sure Aisha Nur has some comments. Okay, let's read the last paragraph, inshallah. Thus, if your mind is not extinguished and your heart not blind, you will understand that what makes one thing with perfect ease and order, and what makes everything one thing skillfully with perfect balance and order. I guess it means one makes everything out of one thing skillfully with perfect balance and order is a stamp particular to the maker of everything, and the seal special to the creator of all things. For example, if you see that together with weaving 100 rolls of broadcloth and various other cloths like silk or cambric from a single ounce of cotton. Anyone has any textile background or something to illuminate us with these examples?
Well, I don't know much about this, but broadcloth, these are all types of weaves. I think cambric is like chambray or something, but these are just types of weaves of cotton. So how the cotton is weaved, so it gives a different texture, different sort of thickness, and how it lays. So you can weave cotton in like many different weaves to give you different types of fabrics.
So it's much clearer now. A wonder worker makes many foods from it, like halwa and pastries. From what? There's something missing here. Cotton?
Cotton.
From cotton, halwa and pastries? How it is the case?
Not in my culture.
Yeah, so since he is exemplifying from a small seed, so this many cloth is being weaved like the leaves, but also fruits are being weaved from the same seed.
Oh, so using the seed of the cotton, some of these food are made.
I mean, this is an example. So he's saying that as if you take a small ounce of cotton and you produce several ounces of cotton plus some food out of the same cotton. And this metaphor applies in real life to a seed. From the same seed, you weave a lot of different cloth, which are the leaves and the flowers and everything, plus he produces food from the same seed.
Thank you. Then you see that he takes a handful of iron and stone. He takes a handful of iron and stone, honey and butter, interesting mixture, iron, stone, honey and butter, water and earth, and makes some fine gold. You would certainly pronounce him to possess unique art, for all the elements of the earth are subjugated to his command, and all the substances of the earth subject to his word. Indeed, the manifestation of power and wisdom in life is 1,000 times more wondrous than this example. Oh, so what kind of real life example you can think of?
I guess he gave them in the previous one for the skin, for example.
Yeah.
So I eat all different stuff, and he weaves a very coherent skin out of all these different, apparently unrelated stuff into
from spinach to your skin.
Yeah. So combining all of them into a skin. I guess the hard part in here is to, with my heedlessness, these seem to be like very ordinary. But are they really ordinary, or is there like, am I able to see the magic in there?
It is like even the fact that we get hungry and looking for some other things to eat is by itself is very magical. And then we eat them and they feed us, and then they build our body. Like because the things we eat, like I'm not talking about people who is eating meat. It makes sense when you think, but the things that I eat, it doesn't make sense. Like how my body is made out of them. It's funny. Like I eat all these vegetables, and then my body, which is me, is manufactured out of it. It's so beautiful. Alhamdulillah.
Even if you ate ice cream, your body.
Even with the ice cream, yes.
Even with ice cream.
I don't really have much to add. I was just thinking about the beginning of the first sentence of the paragraph. If your mind is not extinguished and your heart is not blind, aspect of this reasoning. I don't really have much to add on it, but it just drew my attention in the sense that you need to use both, like through, it must make sense to my mind and then kind of confirm with my heart as well. I have to be able to see it with my heart and also use my reasoning in the process. That's all. Now you can conclude. Thanks.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم الحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة